and why it could have a massive impact on crypto. And I want to show you the coin that I think can benefit the most from this fall pool. So let me explain what it actually is and how you guys can stand to benefit from this. So P-Luna DAO. What's up, Banter fam? Welcome back to the show. I hope you're having a lovely day. Today, I'll be talking about a huge development in DeFi, which I think has the potential to change the crypto landscape as a whole. I've got one altcoin to show you, which I believe could potentially be the next Luna. It's going to be a massive show. You don't want to miss out. Let's get straight into the show. Firstly, before we get into the alpha, if you aren't following my Instagram, there's a link in the description. What are you doing if you're not following me? Because I've been covering my trip to Miami over the last week. I went to the Bitcoin conference. I got to interview the likes of Aaron Rodgers. I met Pomp. I met Michael Saylor. We've got the part 2 to that coming out in a couple days. So if you want to see my trip to Miami, get a little bit of a sneak peek as to what goes on behind the scenes, my Instagram is in the description. I highly recommend checking it out. But this is going to be a massive show because I'm going to reveal a narrative which I think is really taking shape in DeFi and has huge implications for crypto as a whole. And there's one altcoin that you could be buying that can potentially give you access to this narrative and could be very, very lucrative in the long run. And I liken it as to being the next Luna. So in order to understand the narrative I'm about to reveal, we have to consider the purpose of stablecoins in crypto. Obviously, stablecoins are a very, very important aspect of crypto as they act between the bridge in crypto, because they're a stable asset, unlike cryptocurrencies, which are a volatile asset. So we need stablecoins to facilitate DeFi and facilitate DeFi transactions in crypto. We need stable assets to, 1, onboard new users, and 2, undergo transactions cross-chain and within DeFi ecosystems. So the biggest stablecoins at the moment are obviously Tether, USDC, we have BUSD, but there's an important distinction that we have to make between stablecoins. You have centralized stablecoins like Tether, and then you have decentralized stablecoins like Terra USD and Frax, which are the ones that I'll be focusing on in this video, because if we do truly want a decentralized future, we need these decentralized stablecoins. Now, you guys are probably very familiar with UST. Every time a UST is minted, a Luna token is burnt. Now, this is a very, very powerful tokenomic system that has been developed in order to improve Luna's tokenomics and improve the stability of the UST peg. So UST has become one of the most prominent stablecoins in DeFi for this reason, and it's actually come to rank 14 in total and has seen a market cap of over $17 billion and one of the biggest increases. But there's been some major changes to the stablecoin sphere over the last couple of weeks, and there's none bigger than the 4 pool. So I want to talk about what the 4 pool is, its implications on crypto as a whole, and why it could have a massive impact on crypto. And I want to show you the coin that I think can benefit the most from this 4 pool. So let me explain what it actually is and how you guys can stand to benefit from this. So P-Luna DAO did a nice thread on what the 4 pool is. Let's keep it short. Curve was one of the first DeFi protocols on Ethereum and is currently host to the deepest liquidity pools within the ETH ecosystem. These LPs are what really enable high frequency and high volume trading with guaranteed low slippage. If you guys don't know, Curve is obviously one of the biggest protocols in Ethereum DeFi, and it's kind of taken DeFi by storm. It's one of the biggest DeFi protocols in crypto. The current biggest pool on Curve is the 3 pool, which consists of DAI, USDT, and USDC. But the new 4 pool, which is a new team up, is between UST, Frax, USDT, and USDC. And it's meant to represent a paradigm shift from the existing 3 pool. So this new 4 pool is multiple protocols teaming up in order to overtake the 3 pool on Curve, which I think is going to have massive implications for crypto as a whole. As you can imagine, the success of 4 pool is not guaranteed. It's largely contingent on liquidity incentives in the form of CRV emissions. The higher emissions are, the more liquidity will be provided to the pool. Does Stablecoin have a plan for that? Well, yes, he does, because he's teamed up Terra Money, Frax Finance, and Redacted Cartel, which now hold the majority of governance tokens, which means they're able to redirect liquidity incentives to their 4 pool. And I think this is massive news because essentially what's happening is we've got Stablecoin teaming up with Frax and Redacted Cartel to take down DAI. So we're seeing UST and Frax essentially operating to take down the 3 pool and take over DAI in the scape of Curve so they can direct emissions to their own pool. And I think this has some massive implications for crypto as a whole, which Harry actually goes over in his thread. So as other protocols pair their stablecoins to the 4 pool rather than the 3 pool, we will find that demand for UST and Frax will follow that for the greater stablecoin economy. For example, if there is an increase in demand for MIM liquidity and it's pooled with the 4 pool, they will have a corresponding increase in demand for UST and Frax, which will then be added to the 4 pool liquidity pool. Through having these high amounts of liquidity, both UST and Frax will have built a defensive cushion that acts as a counterparty to sellers, which I think is really important. So what's happening is DAI is losing liquidity and demand, and that demand is being replaced by UST and Frax. So it's absolutely massive for the ecosystem as a whole because we're seeing this paradigm shift from the 3 pool to the 4 pool. And obviously the big winners here are going to be UST and they're going to be Frax. So I want to get on Kevin. He has a nice little excerpt from an interview he did. And I want to show you why he thinks that this could be massive for the ecosystem, and also how this could affect the curve wars as a whole, because it's important to understand what the curve wars are in order to recognize how massive this could be for crypto. So I'll let Kevin take it away.
Well, I guess we should talk a little bit about how Convex works. So both of these groups, Frax and Terra Luna, have a lot of Convex, right? CVX, right? And what that allows them to do is it allows them, we're shortcutting a little bit, but basically allows them to point a lot of the rewards of Curve, right? So for using Curve or staking to Curve, Curve itself gives out CRV tokens, right, as an incentive to provide liquidity. But in order to decide which pool gets how much, there's basically a gauge which is voted on based on the staked CRV or the VE CRV, vote escrowed CRV that people hold.
So what he's saying here is the holders of VE Curve decide where to direct emissions. Convex is a layer that's stacked on top of Curve, and it's a protocol which pools assets together to acquire Curve tokens. So Convex users receive the Curve rewards, but let's keep going because it gets really interesting in relation to the 4 pool.
So Convex is basically a layer on top of that. Long story short, basically governs this kind of voting scheme and can basically increase the yields of certain pools to the detriment of other pools. So in that they hold a lot of Convex, both the Frax guys and the Luna guys, they have a lot of voting power on making their 4 pool when it comes out, making it have a very high yield. And they think that by having that, they'll be able to attract a lot of capital from other Curve pools to stake into their pool, hence drawing liquidity away from 3 pool and introducing it to 4 pool.
So I think this is massive news for 4 pool as a whole, because essentially what these guys are doing, what Frax, what UST are doing, is they're directing a large percentage of emissions to the 4 pool, which will incentivize capital to stake on the 4 pool. Because if the 4 pool on Curve has a higher APR, many other people with capital are going to want to direct liquidity into that pool because that's what's paying the highest rates. Now, as you saw in that interview, he's saying that Redacted Cartel, Frax, and Terra actually own a large amount of these Convex tokens, which is going to enable them to direct emissions towards their pool, which is bullish as a whole because we can see 4 pool being the dominant player in this ecosystem. Do Kwon actually came out and said that that is exactly the case, and that's the future he is trying to build. He came out and said in this tweet that the curve wars are over, all emissions are going to the 4 pool. I think that there's a little bit more to play out in terms of the curve wars, but he's saying here that it's essentially over. He thinks emissions will be going towards the 4 pool, and I would tend to agree. But we have to look at the big winners in this ecosystem in order for us to financially capitalize on here. Now, I think there's going to be a big winner out of these 4 stablecoins that I think could potentially be the next Luna. Obviously, UST is the obvious winner here because it makes the UST peg so much more stable. So Alex Simpson said, as we can see, the 4 pool changes the game for the stability of the UST peg. Compared to pools elsewhere in DeFi, the 4 pool will be as much as 300,000 times more robust to depeg events. So what he's saying here is that the 4 pool, due to the mechanism of the curve pools, will enable UST to be a lot more stable, which helps it maintain peg. So obviously with this pool, UST is the big winner because it will have more stability and there's less exposure now to depeg risk. But I think there is another major winner here and something that I can think could be the next Luna, and that is actually Frax. Now, Drake on Digital did an amazing thread on Frax that I want to go through right now. And then I'm going to go through my logic with some mathematics to show you why I think exposure to Frax could potentially be akin to getting Luna at $5. So I'm going to go through the maths. I'm going to go through Drake's thread and justify my thesis here, because I think this is giving us a major opportunity to capitalize. So if you're unaware of the two coins in the 4-pool, Frax and UST, they both have a mint and burn function with their governance tokens. So with Frax, a portion of collateral and Frax is burnt every time the Frax stablecoin is minted. And for UST, it's fully algorithmic. So $1 of Luna is burnt, akin to $1 of UST being minted. So it's a little different. Frax uses collateral in order to substantiate its burn mechanism, and UST is fully algorithmic. So the too long didn't read is, to mint more UST, you need to burn more Luna, and the more Frax, you need to burn FXS. But what's interesting about FSX, which is the governance token of the Frax stablecoin, is that the circulating supply, most of it's actually locked. So over 62% of FXS right now is locked in pools. So if there's massive demand for the Frax token, obviously through this pool, there could be massive demand. There are not many tokens to be burnt from because most of it's locked. So we could see an increased amount of burn on the supply side when it comes to these FSX tokens. Now, Drake says, I know what you're saying. Cool, thanks for the random data. But here's where it comes together, and this is the curve pool. And this fact here is why I'm pretty bullish on Frax long term, and I'm bullish on the ecosystem. So right now, Frax has a market cap of $2.7 billion. USDT, UST, and USDC already have market caps of 17 bill. So if we look at Frax at a market cap of 2.7, it's well under the market caps of something like a UST at a market cap of 17 billion. But for example, if there's $10 billion in this new 4-pool, each stablecoin will need to be weighted evenly at 2.5 billion. Obviously, with this pool, USDT, UST, USDC, and Frax all need to have an even weighting in the pool. So if there's $10 billion in the 4-pool, for example, each token will need to have a $2.5 billion weighting in the pool. That's just how it works with these pools. However, as we saw here, 62% of the Frax supply is locked, and the total market cap of Frax is only 2.7 billion. So if it needed 2.5 billion with the 4-pool, then many Frax will actually need to be minted in order to balance out the pool. So many Frax are going to need to come into existence if this pool gains in popularity. As I just showed you, I have a high inkling that it will. So if Frax need to be minted, what happens to FXS? Exactly, FSX needs to be burnt in order to mint more Frax. So this is why I think buying FXS could be equivalent to buying Luna at something like $5, because it has a market cap of 2.7 billion, but it will need to substantially increase in market cap to keep up with the incoming demand for this token. And Drake continues to justify this. He says, remember the market caps of stables. Let's say the pool gets 6 billion in TVL. So I said 10 bill, he says 6 billion. That would mean $1.5 billion you'd need from each stablecoin. So USDT, UST, Frax, and USDC. So you need 1.5 billion in order to substantiate a $6 billion pool in TVL. So remember the current supply of Frax is 2.7 billion. So if it got to 6 billion, the 4-pool, the Frax supply would need to increase by 50%. Remember what I told you about the FXS token. Every time the Frax is minted, they're going to need to counteract that by burning FXS. So the increased supply of the Frax stablecoin is actually going to work as a deflationary mechanism towards the FXS price. So this means that they need to burn a portion of it. Right now, it's around 15% FXS, so it's not a linear like Luna and UST, but it still needs to be burnt to facilitate all this printing of these Frax tokens. So it's a very illiquid token, and illiquid tokens have a tendency to whip in price. That's why I think it could be akin to purchasing something like a Luna. Drake has amazing threads on Frax if you want to learn more about it. So let's look at Frax shares right now. They're at $28, and they have a market cap of 1.6 billion. I don't know, guys. If I'm looking at this and I'm going 1.6 billion, that's actually not very crazy compared to other stablecoins and other systems like Luna. Obviously, Luna hit, I think, 30-40 billion in market cap. So 1.6 is quite conservative for Frax. If the 4-pool is really the dominant player in Curve, then I think FXS is going to stand to benefit the most. So just like Luna is to UST, FXS is to Frax. So it's a similar kind of mechanism we've got going on here. And that's why the title, I honestly don't believe is clickbait, because I think FXS has potential to do a Luna type run in the future. Now, this might not happen tomorrow. It might take some time for this pool to garner liquidity and for Frax to be utilized across DeFi as a whole. But I think it's a very genius mechanism, and I love the team at Frax, so I think it's a very good option. And this token is giving us exposure to this narrative. If you want to purchase FXS, you can do so on 1inch. You can purchase FXS tokens across multiple chains. 1inch is an aggregator, which will give you some of the best rates. And they're also one of the show sponsors. So I do think FXS is a great play to capture this narrative. And I think the 4 pool is being slept on. I'm not hearing a lot of people talking about it at the moment. And I think that might be a mistake. I think this could really be a narrative that takes hold and performs well in the future. And it's something I'm looking at accumulating over the coming months because I think it could perform really well. And I want to share this alpha with you guys because I'm not hearing many people talk about it. We hear a lot of talk about the impact on UST, but we haven't heard much talk about the impact on Frax yet. So I wanted to come out here and talk to you guys about it because I haven't heard much about Frax. Obviously, Drake's done a lot of coverage about it though. And just remember, guys, if you want to win $5,000, we're giving $1,000 worth of Bitcoin to 5 lucky winners. So if you hit the link in the description for this Mexi giveaway, you sign up and you deposit $100. You don't need to trade. All you need to do is sign up, deposit $100 into Mexi. You can stand a chance to win $1,000 worth of Bitcoin to celebrate Bitcoin Miami, but you only have 4 days to get involved because we're ending the giveaway in 4 days. 5 winners are going to win $1,000 worth of Bitcoin if they sign up and deposit $100. So I would get involved in that with the link in the description. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I think Frax is very, very interesting. And I think the 4 pool is going to have big ramifications for the curve wars as a whole and also for UST. I think it's going to be great for the stability of UST. And it's also going to be great for the adoption of Frax, thus leading to an increased FXS burn, which is only bullish for the token price as a whole. I hope you guys agree with my thesis as well. Smash the like button for this alpha, guys. I will catch you in the next video on Monday at 6:30 p.m. EST. See you in the next one. Peace out.